Hi, this is Sean D'Souza, and you're listening to the 3-Month Vacation Podcast. This podcast isn't some magic trick about how to work less. Instead, it's about how to really enjoy the work that you do and to enjoy your vacation time. Hi, I'm Sean D'Souza, and you're listening to the 3-Month Vacation. Imagine a person who can sniff a perfume and instantly identify the brand. That person is my wife, Renuka. She can quickly work her way through as many as 150 fine fragrances. Now, what are fine fragrances? Fine fragrances are perfumes made in a classical style. These are made by companies such as Chanel, Givenchy, Estée Lauder, Calvin Klein, companies like that. If you asked Renuka if she's passionate about perfumes, her answer is clearly yes. She worked in the perfumery industry for well over 10 years, and she would spend a lot of time every day just tuning her nose, just sharpening that skill.
So I used to get to the office every day, close my door, and just study my favorite fragrances for half an hour to 1 hour.
So would that count as a passion? It should, shouldn't it? All your life you're told to follow your passion, to dig deep, to find the one thing that makes you ecstatic. Somehow you're supposed to know, almost at the point of leaving school, what you're going to be good at, and to go after that passion. And Renuka didn't fit that bill at all. The only reason she took the job at the fragrance company was because she was sick and tired of traveling. She wanted a marketing job that involved little or no travel. When she started out in her industry, she didn't know anything about the industry. But it wasn't just about the industry, it was about fragrances or any kind of perfumes as well. If you are in Mumbai, India, and you look around, a lot of women wear flowers in their hair. There are whole market spaces that are designed just to sell flowers. And two of the most popular flowers in women's hair are Mogra and Jasmine. So, as Renuka joined this company, she was put to the test. She was asked to identify Mogra and Jasmine. And she couldn't. The fragrance of Mogra and Jasmine is all over the place, and yet she couldn't identify it. She didn't realize that soap, the soap that you have your shower with, it contains perfume. So when you look at this concept of passion, you wonder, wait, how could she be passionate about something that she knew nothing about? And when we listen to the words of Scott Adams, who's the author and creator of the highly successful cartoon strip Dilbert, here's what he says. He says, success feeds passion more than passion feeds success. And he's right, you know. Passion is a slightly ridiculous word because very few of us know what we're going to be passionate about, especially early in life. If you speak to my nieces who are 8 and 13, they seem to have a range of things that they love. One loves dancing and music to the point where she'll stop chattering and start singing along to the music. Another loves animals, is really fond of the idea, the romantic version of being a vet, until she has to do all the unromantic stuff as well. And that's because success feeds passion. If you look at my own story, I was learning computers a long time ago when they just came out, when they just became popular, when Photoshop was barely a few years old. And I remember going to Photosoft. It was a computer training school, and I learned CorelDRAW and Photoshop there. And today I'm very passionate about Photoshop. But back then, I'd learn it and I'd forget it. I'd learn it and forget it. To say that I was passionate about it was an incredibly silly thing to say, an incredibly silly statement to make. I was struggling with Photoshop all the time, but many years later, I needed Photoshop more than anything else. When I first started drawing cartoons, what you'd do is you'd draw on a sheet of paper, then you'd take it to the photocopy shop, you'd take a whole bunch of copies, then you bring it back, then you'd color each of them in different colors, just to show the client how it looked. And so there was this very archaic, slow system of coloring and painting and doing all that stuff. And then when Photoshop came along, I could just take the illustration, scan it in, and paint on screen, and then do all the variations. And this was without doing any photocopying, any of that running around. Was I passionate about Photoshop to start with? Of course not. But now, 21 years later, I'm still very passionate about it. Most people don't get hit by a passion bolt of lightning. Instead, they fumble, they stumble, they grumble, and they work their way into a new world. And along the way, they run into something that's more of an exploration process. At first, they might try to solve their own problem and come up with their own solution. But a client might approach them and say, can you solve this for me? And they solve it, and that becomes the starting point. Or you have a situation where you have a job, like Renuka, and you get a highly unusual assignment. And then you have to go through the process of falling in love with that skill. And all of us go through this even at the very highest level. If you take someone like Michael Phelps, for instance, you think, well, surely he was born to be a swimming champion. Nonsense. Phelps absolutely detested the water. He didn't want to get into it when he was a kid. But he had a problem at school. He had problem concentrating and he was constantly fidgety. The pediatrician diagnosed him with ADHD and prescribed Ritalin. He wanted to get rid of the Ritalin, and his mother wanted that too. So to burn off all that excess energy, he was told to swim it off. Now, with all those Olympic medals to his name, we'd be forgiven for believing that he was born with a passion for water. Even once he had more than made his mark in swimming, his so-called passion flickered wildly. In the run-up to the 2012 Olympics, he routinely skipped practice. He didn't show up for days on end. He got into intense arguments with his coach, Bob Bowman. Bob Bowman told Dateline that he wished Phelps would have quit right at that point. I didn't want him going through all of this. I thought it was going to end badly, said Bowman. You can do something. You can go and pick successful people at random. And you're sure to hit those who knew what they were going to do long before they made it big. Some people, it seems, are either groomed or got really good at the skill. And then they go on to huge success over time. That's more the exception than the rule. Akio Morita didn't start out making Walkmans. He started out making rice cookers, and they were all complete flops. The inventor of the pacemaker, William Greatbatch, he had no interest in getting the heart to function well. Instead, he spent his days as a young man absorbed in radio technology. Thomas Knoll, one of the Knoll brothers that invented Photoshop, was a doctoral candidate in computer vision. He had no desire to create one of the most loved photo retouching tools on the planet. So where do you go to find your passion? When you hear how Renuka got into the perfumery business, it might seem like a lucky break. The reality is that she sold discount debit cards to begin with. Then she sold timeshares with a company called Dalmia Resorts. Her lucky break was like any other lucky break. It wasn't lucky at all. It was just a matter of getting involved with the project for long enough to find that you're hopeless at it at first. If there's one thing we know about passion is that it starts off, it gets really bright, and then it wanes over time, and then it soars again, and it might wane again, it might change direction. One thing is very clear though, you're not going to find your passion anytime soon. You'll just have to do what almost everyone before you has already done. And that is, you'll have to start solving a problem. You'll have to solve that problem for yourself or for someone else. Just writing a blog or creating a website, those are good starting points, but it's probably not going to solve the primary role of a business. A business tends to figure out what a client needs, and then it creates a solution for that problem. To address the problem of the clients, you'll often have to get moving past your computer screen. To get a business going, start those cooking classes, make those guitar videos, teach someone how to do the stuff that you know. When people speak to me, they tell me you're very talented and they tell me that I'm passionate about stuff, but I had no idea what I wanted to do. And certainly with regard to marketing, I had no idea that I would like marketing. I liked the idea of writing, but I hated the process. I didn't like to speak in front of audiences. Cooking was this 3-hour process with 100 dishes, and it was just a frustrating process. I didn't even dance very well at one point in time. But what I was very good at was drawing, and I was good at that from a very early age, and I do that to this day. But in the year 2000, that's what I quit. I stopped doing that as a profession. I got into marketing, which I knew very little about. At this point, I love writing. I love speaking. I love all the things that I pretty much hated back then. You'll have to do something for yourself. You'll have to forget looking for your passion. You'll have to learn something well. You'll have to solve a problem. You're not going to find your passion. You'll have to do something, and then do something more, and then do something more, and your passion will find you instead. But this brings up an objection. Don't you need to know something well before you can solve someone else's problem? Let's address that in the second part. Does your neighbor know how to mow a lawn better than you? I'd say if you walk across, you'll find the answer. Whether they do a better job of mowing the lawn or not, it barely matters. At some point, that neighbor is likely to pay you for the job if you offer to mow their lawn. Most businesses don't start solving some amazing problem. Most businesses are remarkably mundane in their approach. You need to get a package across, so let's invent a business like FedEx. You want to learn how to get rid of the cracks on your feet? Let's make a product like Heel Balm. Every idea is not a seemingly massive idea, a seemingly amazing idea. Take for instance the book 5-Minute iPhone Magic. That's a book that we sell on our website. How many pages do you think that book contains? It promises a 5-minute makeover, so it can't have many pages, can it? But wait, surely the author, that's me, must be a great photographer. Because here's a book on photography, right? Even as you hear those words, you know that is not true. I'm an excellent cartoonist. My writing skills are way above average, and my photography, that's something I do a lot of the time. Yet, unlike any of the books that you see on Amazon, this book isn't promising that you will learn any major technical stuff. In fact, what makes the book so palatable is that it takes those 50 features that exist in the software and gets rid of 47 of them. When you have only 3 things to learn, you are on your way to taking some wonderful, if not outstanding pictures just with your iPhone. As you can see, these are just 3 little things that are in this book which sell for $9.99 and people buy it by the dozen. The most mundane job will get you started as an entrepreneur, which is why so many successful people talk about these mundane jobs. They delivered papers. They worked as waiters. They brushed down a dozen horses. Jobs that are pretty mundane, pretty boring. And while they were lucky enough to get their mundane job earlier in life, every job, every business has an overwhelming amount of mundane moments. The reason why most of us don't start is because we think we have to be outstanding. We have to be at least superior in some way. No one is saying that you have to be mediocre, but when you start out, you're going to be average at best. And there's this funny story to tell at this point because it involves photography. A few months ago, my cousin came over from Dubai and she was visiting with us. For some reason, the discussion about my sister's wedding came up. And since I have been a keen photographer forever, I decided, okay, let's pull out those pictures from the wedding. But when I looked at the video and when I looked at the pictures, I was horrified. About 30 seconds into the video, I just stopped it. I couldn't bear to watch it. It was so terrible. I couldn't believe that it was me that shot that. And it wasn't like 15 or 20 years ago. It was probably about 10 years ago. But the funny thing is that even back then, even with that seemingly shoddy work, which I thought was really good back then, someone would hire me. Even when I was turning out what I consider to be terrible cartoons, bad logos, and probably below average articles. Someone was still willing to pay for it because it solved a problem. While you look at yourself and you think, that's not good enough, there are so many people better than me, it doesn't matter to the client. They just want that problem solved right then. The reason why so many successful people get that way is because they're either ignorant of how bad they were, I was sure ignorant of how bad I was, or they see the timeline. They know that they will get better and this is all they can do right now. You'll never really get off the ground if you wait for that better moment. And that passion, your passion, it'll go and find someone else who's more deserving. Do these words sound harsh? Sure, but that's how passion comes into being. Anything you do is going to start off crappy. It's going to stay crappy for a long time. You're going to get a little better at it. Once you get control of it, you're going to start to enjoy it. That's when the passion is going to come in. Renuka didn't know much about perfumes. Even though I'm pretty hopeless with fragrances, I could identify a mogra or jasmine flower fragrance. Renuka's start wasn't the intersection of knowing something well and solving someone else's problem. You don't have to know anything well. You just have to be average. That's how you're going to start. You're going to be average for quite a while. That's how you're going to continue. Renuka started right at the bottom and then she worked her way to the point where she was offered a job as a perfumer. You don't get to be asked to be a perfumer unless you have knowledge of the chemicals. Again, she knew nothing about chemicals. She didn't take the job because her life veered off in another direction. And with that, we come to the end of this episode, which is part 1 of this series on passion. The first thing that we covered today was that you cannot believe these videos and these articles that say follow your passion because no one knows what their passion is. And when someone says, oh, what's your passion in life? Well, that's very difficult to answer unless you're in the middle of it. When you're starting out, you have no idea that you're going to be passionate about it. If you're going to be passionate about something, you have to be reasonably good at it. But to be good, you have to be crappy, and then you have to be average, and then you have to be a little better than average, and then above average. And it's a journey. And you're going to have to make that journey, and your passion will find you at some point. You wake up one morning and go, you know something? I can do this really well. I really enjoy it. I have control over it. and I like it. I enjoy it. And that's when your passion has found you. So that's the first thing. The second thing that we covered was this objection that you have to know something well, and that there has to be this magical intersection where you have to know something well and somebody else has to need that something. And no. Don't go down that path. That is overanalysis, which we're all very good at doing. You don't need that overanalysis. You don't need to know what intersection it's going to cross. All you need to do is do something mundane. Something that interests you, of course. No one's saying go out there and dig ditches. But maybe you want to learn about podcasts. Well, go out there and learn about podcasts. You want to learn Photoshop. Go out there and learn Photoshop. You're going to be pretty crappy at it for quite a while. And then at some point in time, someone's going to ask for your help. That intersection is going to show up at that point. You don't have to look for that intersection while you're driving this stretch of the road. That intersection is way down the road. It doesn't matter. But you're never going to get to that intersection if you think, I have to be really good at this stuff. To be really good at this stuff, you have to start, and you have to be really crappy at it. So almost work your way and say, okay, 600 days from now or 100 days from now, I will be reasonably good at it. And this is what I do with my watercolors. I started out drawing watercolors, and if you look at my work on Facebook, you will think that I was always very good at watercolors. Now, I was very good at drawing, but I was hopeless at watercolors. But I decided that in 5 years, I will be good at watercolors. And now 7 years have passed, and I'm good at watercolors, and I can teach watercolors, and I have taught watercolors, and you see the story, right? So that brings us to the end of this podcast. We will continue this in the next session. What's happening in psychotactics land? As an entrepreneur, you have to sell your products or services, and for that, you need a landing page. Now, there are two parts to copywriting. The first is just the landing page itself, but there's also the copywriting strategy. If we were to take away that copywriting strategy and just say, how can we get a great landing page? That's what we're doing in Singapore. On the 12th, 13th, and 14th of April, we're going to be in Singapore. We're doing a workshop there. If you haven't visited Singapore, you're in the area, or you're flying in from some other place far away, and you'd like to come to Asia, this is your chance, 12th, 13th, and 14th. If, on the other hand, you're in Europe, or even if you're in the States or in Canada or South America, and you go, okay, Brussels seems to be a good idea, then by the 18th, 19th, and 20th, we're going to be in Brussels, and we're doing this landing page workshop. What's different about the landing page workshop is a lot of copywriters take at least a week to get a single sales page up. And we're going to show you how you can do this in 3 days. And there is a system that you can replicate every single time. You'll find out how to do this at the workshop, the landing page workshop. But if you want to get your feet wet with copywriting, then one of the best products that we have on our website is Client Attractors. And Client Attractors shows you how to write benefits and features and bullets. And you think, wait a second, why is that so important? It's important because when you are able to write benefits and features and bullets, they're like headlines. People stop at headlines. And this is like not one headline, but 17 headlines or 25 headlines in your copy. Often people will buy based on a single bullet, not based on all that information that you have there, but on that single bullet. So learning how to write bullets is very critical, and that's what Client Attractors does. So get yourself a copy of Client Attractors and start on your copywriting journey. And if you can, then join us in Singapore or in Brussels in April 2018. And finally, there's 5000 BC. Now, 5000 BC is a membership site where introverts meet. And what's important about 5000 BC is the way it's structured. You can join any membership site and it's the same thing. There's lots of information, lots of interviews, lots of everything. And like all websites, all membership websites, we have lots of information in 5000 BC. However, what's different is that when you go to some other website and you ask a question, you're not likely to get an answer from the owner themselves. That's what I do. I write all the answers, and often I'll write 2, 3, 4 articles in response to your answer. The other part of 5000 BC, which I find more critical, is the Taking Action Forum. And you will find people writing their articles, creating their information products. They're doing stuff. We're so involved in running after those shiny objects that we fail to understand that it's getting us nowhere. The Taking Action Forum has people like you, like me, and we're taking action. We're moving ahead all the time, which is why you got into this business in the first place, or why you want to start up a business. You want to actually take action, not buy yet another product or another service that you'll get halfway through and you won't do anything with it. So that's what 5000 BC is about. I would suggest you get there quicker than later, and you'll find that it's one of the kindest, nicest places to be. That's me, Sean D'Souza, saying bye for now, and we'll be back with the second episode of how to get your passion to find you instead of running after it like a crazy person. Bye for now.